Alright, so 2 weeks ago, the trailer for the Homestuck pilot dropped, and I'm not entirely sure how to feel about it. Now, you may have no idea about this. This is gonna be a striking sarcophagus lore dump right here. Throughout, like, my entire middle to high school year, Homestuck was my entire personality. I loved this stupid-ass webcomic. Like, this shaped my entire existence for those years of my life. I wish I was joking. Like, I'm not gonna lie, my nigga, I was annoying as fuck about it too. As a matter of fact, bro, look at my name. Look at my channel name. You see how the first S is lowercase and the second S is capitalized? That is because it's meant to imitate the Trollian and Pester Chum usernames that are in that comic. My username on this fucking website was derived from Homestuck, bro. And if it was not for the fan base, I would still be proudly repping this shit, because there are parts of this comic that are actually really good in my eyes. Class Spec System is still one of my favorite power systems in fiction, and I will never drop that to this day. But it is so convoluted and hard to get into that I could barely recommend it to anybody. So normally I'd be excited about it being in show form. Granted, it's going to take away a lot of the things that made Homestuck particularly unique, but it's gonna make its story more digestible and probably get more people to get into the comic. But there is just one small problem. The trailer dropped on Vivziepop's channel.
What? No, dude!
And you know how I feel about Vivziepop shows. I don't like them. But then, I looked a bit deeper, and then it hit me. She's not writing it! Alright, enough Blue Lock edits, but you know, the point still stands. We have hope for this now. She's not a writer. We could actually be facing a good show. If we ignore all the Andrew Hussey shit, we're not going to talk about that. Now, there are several reasons I don't want Vivziepop in the writing room of a Homestuck show. Mainly because she's not a good writer, but also because one of the main things in Homestuck that drives a lot of the plot is a caste system. And the caste system that Vivziepop writes kinda sucks. Oh yeah, this is the part where the actual video starts, by the way. So, what is a caste system to begin with? Basically, it's a social hierarchy. You're born, and people determine if you suck or not based on how you were born. Like, let's say there's some tribe off in some random deserted island that nobody goes to visit or knows about. In this hypothetical tribal society, your social status is determined based on your eye color. People with black and brown eyes are at the very bottom of the hierarchy. Nobody likes them, these guys suck. They do all the worst jobs, and nobody is going to respect them, nor will they ever get out of this rut they're in. Next are individuals with amber eyes. They're the upper middle class of society. They basically do all the big jobs, like lawyers, or whatever I guess would be tribal lawyers. I don't know. Did not take long for the tribal setting of this to fall apart, huh? Either way, they're better than the brown-eyed losers because they actually have well-paying jobs that aren't the worst. Next, people with blue eyes. They're nobles, and they get a lot of money for basically doing nothing. They're considered basically a step away from royalty, and disrespecting them could easily lead to death if you were just so loose with your lips. And lastly, those with green eyes. They're of the royal class. Everybody respects them, and they lead the entire civilization. Their actual skill doesn't matter, but they were born with the right to lead you, so they will. Individuals born with any other eye color outside of the established ones in this system are killed immediately, and heterochromic individuals are instantly banished due to breaking the system and not being a part of their established caste. I'm sure you get what I mean. Caste systems like this are amazing in fiction, and they can easily enrich a story. The caste system of the Saiyans is a really good example as well. It provides a layer of expectation and understanding how these characters grew up. Knowing the role a character is expected to play from birth can get you to feel for them, because it's something that's, you know, sort of relatable at times. So how do both of these series handle their caste systems, and why is Homestuck so objectively better than the Helliverse? I'm glad you asked, because I've been waiting to yap about this ever since I got off work. Let's get started on the caste system of the Trolls. Homestuck's first few acts follow 16 characters, 4 humans and 12 members of an odd gray-skinned alien race called trolls. They have a lot of unique ideals, customs, and systems that a lot of weird autistic humans in the real world try to replicate to no avail, while actively being a nuisance to the rest of the world. The main driving force of troll society is the Hemospectrum, aka Homestuck's caste system. Basically, you're born with one of 13 different blood colors, but only 11 of them are going to be useful in this video, considering the others are, mutations and aren't really directly part of the caste itself. But each blood color basically comes with your own socioeconomic classes, expected jobs, and, zero protection against anything ever. We're gonna go through all the castes, their expected jobs, their roles in society, etc., and go from the bottom all the way up to the top. Let's start. At the very bottom of the Hemospectrum are Rust or Burgundy bloods. These guys absolutely suck. No one likes them. Everybody hates them. Relative to the rest of the Hemospectrum, who have lifespans that can go all the way into the millions, Rust bloods have even shorter lifespans than regular humans, capping out at maybe around 50 years at the most. They have basically all the worst jobs, whether it be blue collar or things like janitorial or grave digging duties. Most Rust bloods possess some good or minor psychic abilities, but they're not useful enough, nor do they live long enough to justify them being above where they are in the caste system. We see when they reach their maximum potential with characters like Aradia that they can just flat out move planets, but more often than not, they never get to reach said potential and thus remain at the bottom of the caste. But either way, the highest on the caste tend to have much more powerful feats to speak of, so it doesn't even really matter. Oh, also, these guys die a lot in their youth. 9 times out of 10 before you're even old enough to make it off planet. When trolls mature, they leave the planet and they go join the Imperious Condescension, who's like, I don't know, like the Frieza of, it would be the best way to describe it. She's like the conqueror that leads the trolls, and she's the one who enforces the system, whatever. Like I was saying, there's basically no law enforcement on any troll planet, so senseless violence is going to happen more often than not. A high blood could crack your best friend's skull open and they'd be unable to do literally anything about it. So these guys are cannon fodder, subjected to frequent culling, and they have it really, really bad. Above them is the Bronze caste. They suck ever so slightly less, but they still suck. Unlike the Rust bloods, who have shorter lifespans than humans, Bronze bloods are basically head-to-head with humans in terms of lifespan. And while they also possess psychic powers, they're usually telepathic in nature, particularly ones that let them communicate with animals. Thus, a lot of Bronze bloods tend to work on ranches, and when they grow into adults, they end up becoming cavalry reapers, who are, as the name implies, expendable cavalry soldiers who come in on animals they control and stab the shit out of their enemies. A pretty common trait of Bronze bloods is that they also tend to be pretty big dreamers, whether it be trying to create on-planet flight travel, no, these races of interstellar trolls do not have access to planes, or just trying to make it big in music. They have basically the same amount of rights, or lack thereof, of the Rust bloods. Not exactly at the bottom, but still close enough to the bottom to get murdered for being born wrong. Next, the Gold bloods, aka the best ones. Remember the psychic powers of the previous caste? Yeah, Gold bloods have that stat turned up to 11. They're undeniably the trolls' most powerful psychics, and in certain cases, they're even able to unleash giant optic blasts, though that's typically only found around the most powerful. They usually work as assassins, tech geeks, hackers, etc., and also sometimes participate in battle tournaments for the sake of winning cash prizes. It's assumed most Gold bloods tend to go on to become regular soldiers, but the exceptionally powerful ones are basically just living batteries for Fish Hitler's spaceship. Despite still being in the bottom 3 castes, Gold bloods definitely seem to be respected more than the other low bloods. They also live around the upper end of a human lifespan. Next are Olive bloods, the kind of worst ones. They're kind of the most underdeveloped caste. They tend to work really underground jobs like detectives and mercenaries. Mainly mercenaries. Not much is really known about them other than that the females are very physically capable, which makes sense. They are associated with the Leo zodiac. I just realized this is the first time this whole video that I actually acknowledge that the trolls are all based on certain zodiacs. Either way, they have a little bit above the average human lifespan, living around 100 years, and in adulthood they can become Threshucutioners, which are basically the army's melee forces, if you will. Next are Jade bloods, and to understand the role of Jade bloods, you kinda need to understand a bit about troll reproduction. Trolls do reproduce sexually in the way that it requires more than one partner to conceive a child. However, trolls themselves don't really conceive children. Instead, they have buckets where they spit their disgusting troll DNA goo in, a partner spits their disgusting troll DNA goo in it as well, and it combines, and is then collected by drones of the mother grub. If you do not have a partner to do this with by a certain age, the drones will just flat out kill you. Yes, being bitchless is an executable offense on Alternia. Either way, it's all sent off to this giant creature called the mother grub, who basically takes all this DNA, mushes it up inside of her weird bug womb, and spits out a bunch of newly birthed trolls. To put it simply, Jade bloods are from birth designed to help care for this mother grub and make sure that she does not die with the troll species. They're also supposed to care for all of her eggs to make sure that those trolls do not die before they get the chance to pupate. They're basically all female and the second rarest caste among trolls. As such, they are absurdly important both in the caste and in society in general. Oh, and weird thing about Jade Bloods, they can kind of just become troll vampires sometimes. Whatever, point is, they're so important that they're not even really allowed to leave the mother grub's lair, because like I mentioned, random acts of violence are very, very common, and they are not really big enough in numbers to be risking that. Their lifespan is also reportedly a good deal above 100 years. Next up, Teal Bloods, the caste of schemers, office workers, and troll milfs. I mainly care about the troll milf. They're basically the slightly upper middle class, considering that they work all the actually, pretty decent jobs in Alternia. They're described as Alternia's civil servants, whether that be through accounting, lawyering, or, scamming people out of thousands of fucking dollars. I hate you, Tagore. Once they go off planet, most Teal Bloods are expected to become legislacerators, which are basically like these lawyer bounty hunter combos who go out to hunt criminals and then bring them to trial. There's not really any statements about Teal Blood lifespans, but it's going to be assumed that they're higher than Jades since, as the castes go up, the lifespans increase. Next are the Cerulean Bloods, which is where privilege really starts. These guys are of the high caste, meaning they can do just basically whatever the fuck they want. While not technically high bloods, they're generally very high ranking, having certain taxis and things like that exclusive for individuals of their class and above. While this is stated to be rare, there are psychic powers present in the Cerulean class. These are usually mind related, whether it be mind reading or mind control. They also sometimes have fucking dojutsu, like Vriska, for example, is capable of seeing through walls with her weird 8-fold pupil eye. I'm not really sure about their role in the army, but I'm pretty sure they were just leading crusades and whatnot, leading small platoons, the deal. Their lifespan also isn't really known, but it's most likely higher in the thousands. Next are Indigo Bloods, who are considered the first of the 4 high blood caste of trolls. They're usually born fuck off rich and most of the time don't even really need to work. A lot of the time they're also fuck off strong, which often makes up for their lack of psychic abilities in general. When they go off into adulthood, they tend to also be soldiers, but only the most prestigious variety being Ruffy Annihilators and the fuck? Arch Eradicators. There it is. That's... God, why are these names so stupid? Indigo Bloods are also pretty well known to be some of the most prejudiced of the blood castes, so much so that they're even willing to enforce their blood superiority on those so much as one rank below them. Above them are the Purple Bloods. They're clowns. Clown children, clown stoners, clown bad bitches. I mainly care about the clown bad bitch. They're the highest class of land-dwelling trolls. Yes, there are non-land-dwelling trolls. They follow a weird Juggalo-themed religion, and it's not entirely clear exactly what the commandments of that religion is, but one thing is for sure, it's a sacrificial religion, and the sacrifices are always low bloods. Unlike Indigo Bloods, despite the fact that their sacrifices are usually of low bloods, it doesn't really seem like they have any bad blood towards them. Yes, they are the ruling class, but it seems like the things they do are more out of religious conviction and entertainment than out of actually, hating low bloods. We don't really see any of them working, and I doubt they need to since they're all part of one, sort of conjoined communal church, if you will. And when they reach maturity, they become subjugulators, which are basically, as the name implies, subjugators of the lower class, who reign both on and off Alternia. A certain purple-blooded troll named the Great High Blood is basically a second in command to the Condus, who leads all the land-dwelling trolls, leads his followers, and will still bend the knee when the Imperious Condescension has something to say about how he's running things. Other than that, he's basically the big dog on Alternia. It should also be noted that Purple Bloods are incredibly physically strong, they have absurdly long lifespans, and access to certain psychic abilities called Chuckle Voodoos, which allows them to manipulate and amplify fear, as well as telepathically communicate with others. Now, the last two castes, despite being the very top of the list, are kinda gonna be really short, because one caste is far less established, and the other has 3 characters. Next we have the Violet Bloods. They're described as royal, but we don't really know what they do. They're stated to be general superiors, but they're not even really superior to the subjugulators, considering that one of them was literally executed by the Grand High Blood. You can even see Violet Blood painting his walls, so clearly they aren't that crazy important if someone of a lower class is capable of, being above them. It's weird, but I'm pretty sure it's just a matter of the Grand High Blood's rank itself rather than the blood caste rank. He is Alternia's land ruler, and thus only the Condus is actually able to, enforce anything on him. Other than that, they're relatively really unexplored. And finally are the Fuchsia Bloods. They are extremely rare, with only 2 of them ever being able to exist at any given time. They're the absolute royal class that rules above all of Alternia, including their space space empire. There's not really much known about fuchsia blood youth other than the fact that they just kind of live in the sea and do whatever they want, but when they reach adulthood, they are problems. Remember when I said certain trolls could live up to 1,000,000 years? Yeah, I meant the fuchsia bloods, and there's a reason their rule is entirely unchallenged. They're ultra powerful, ultra durable, and due to the fact they have so much time, they can basically enhance their power even more. Hondas, in her time with just a couple hundred years with the humans, managed to reach her maximum potential as a troll, gaining all the psychic powers of all of the previous castes and then some. A lot of them are also petty, cruel, and really hate lowbloods for no reason. Triza literally sent several drones to attack a low-blood neighborhood just so she could use the burning buildings as a backdrop for a fucking selfie. She even made it illegal for people to not laugh at her jokes and memes, and she's not even an empress yet. Now, this entire 10 minutes about Homestuck's caste system was heavily condensed down, so you could see there's a whole lot of intricacies and things that need to be talked about when it comes to the troll race. I'm sure during the explanation you probably had a lot of questions like, why is this guy's voice so annoying? When will he stop talking? But I'm sure you also had some questions related to the actual topic I was talking about. It opens up the questions for how the society is sustained. What historical events led to this happening? Sure, these blood castes are biologically different and they do have a serious physical impact, but that's not a proper reason to justify their mistreatment, right? What would you do and how would you fare if you were thrown into this society? And more often than not, you can actually come up with answers because Homestuck is very consistent about this caste system. Despite the planet where this reigns on having been long gone by the time the story starts, he never lets you forget it. Hussey will continue to remind you of this through the characters. Their upbringing influences their behavior. It shows how certain characters think and how they're bound to feel based off how they grew up, the role they were given in society, and how that plays into their personality types. For example, let's look at Equius Zahak. Despite Alternia being long gone and no longer really being a part of troll society, he still, as an Indigo blood, enjoys exercising his power over low bloods, and takes almost masochistic pleasure in obeying the commands of Gamzee, who's of a higher caste than him. This extends so far that even when Equius's crush Aradia, who's a rust blood, asks him to make her a robotic body, he gives it a heart that pumps indigo blood through it. This colors every interaction Equius has with his friends throughout the entire story, until he dies at the hands of a high blood, smiling the whole way through. There are a lot of other examples, but this is getting too long. The point is that with the caste system in Homestuck, it maintains consistency. You want to know what isn't consistent though? The Helliverse's caste system has 8 total layers. Unfortunately, the reality in the Helliverse is a little bit different than what is supposed to be implied, so for the introduction of all these castes, I'm going to be going mainly off of intent rather than the reality of the situation, because it's bad. At the very bottom of the cast, we have imps and hellhounds. Imps make up Hell's working class. They're basically all the cashiers, the servants, etc. They just kind of do things. They were made to be obedient, and it's so far that it's literally written within their nature to be obedient to higher-ups. And while it does say that imps and hellhounds share the lowest rank, I do believe hellhounds are below imps, considering imps are able to own hellhounds of their own. Speaking of hellhounds, they're basically like pets. Yes, they are sentient, but they mainly do like bodyguard duties, and other than that, they're basically just, property. Above that are the Hellborn demons, who, your succubi, your shark niggas, your fish niggas. They are the natural denizens of whatever ring they're a part of and are basically made to commit any duties that are, required of them. Succubi work under Asmodeus, making those toys you find in the soap section at Walmart. Infestors are part of the Envy Ring, and they do things. I don't know, it's probably explained, but I'm not watching Ghost Fuckers again. But you get the idea, the basic general demon class that exists, throughout particular rings of hell. Oh, God, that was horrible on my throat, golly. Above them are the Pride Ring Sinner Demons. They live in Hell Detroit where they can do whatever the fuck they want. They get killed every year, and that's really it. It's kinda up to them. If they're dedicated to striking deals and gaining power, they can upgrade to an Overlord. Overlords command certain territory of the Pride Ring, as well as having, certain aspects entirely dedicated to them. For example, the group of Overlords called the V's, owning basically all of the media production. Thank God Fox had this very convenient character design, otherwise I might not be able to tell what his job is. Cause this is where sinners are meant to spend their eternal damnation, they can't leave this ring. However, they still can communicate through rings, considering that we see Vox's television programs on different rings that aren't the Pride Ring. Above the overlords are the Ars Goetia, who are basically royal family demon bird people, with all the messy Kardashian drama you could expect from that description. Their jobs are pretty unclear, but Stolus's job is, just to watch the stars and predict shit. They're royalty, so they're incredibly posh British assholes, and that's kind of about it. Well, except the ones that the story wants you to like, but whatever. Above them are the 7 deadly sins, who basically run all of the 7 rings respective to their sins. Satan is the de facto leader, but the real leader will be touched on later. They don't really seem to have any distinct job other than making sure that people within their ring abstractly sort of, follow the sin that they represent. Beelzebub is insistent on making people constantly indulge. Mammon does shows with the main intention being for people to buy stuff. And Asmodeus always trying to get people to get freaky by making those toys that... Oh wait, did I already use that joke? Oh, shit. Right above the world's lamest interpretation of the 7 kings of hell, we have Charlie Morningstar and her mother. Charlie is the princess of hell and heir to the throne, while Lilith is the queen. Or more accurately, was the queen before she fled off to heaven or whatever. And at the very top of the hierarchy, we have the king of hell, Lucifer. He's the leader of the 7 deadly sins and supposedly runs hell by making rubber duckies in his living room. He embodies the pure evil of his sin by not talking to his daughter, and the alleged backshots he gave Eve. Alright, that about sums up Hell's hierarchy, and first off, let's just say, what the fuck? On paper, it's not that bad of a caste system, but from what we see, it's kind of barely followed. First things first, let's talk about the biggest problem we see here, and that is the imps. We get told that it's somehow impressive for imps to be opening businesses as if that doesn't happen often, and that wouldn't really be a problem if so many imps weren't seen with businesses and empires. Wacky Wally Wackford is a joke character, and he's shown having several businesses and stands he opens on his own. Moxie's dad, Crimson, literally owns a mafia empire in the Greed Ring, with several hellborn demons working under him. This is never even brought into question. According to Vivziepop, the whole reason why she wanted to center the show around imps is because it was supposed to be a representation of the working class starting a business, and the difficulties that arise from this. Barely anyone even acknowledges IMP being imp-owned outside of trying to praise it for being that such thing. Nobody acknowledges that it's by imps, nobody seems to doubt them because they're imps. It's treated like anyone else opening any other business. Charlie, the fucking princess of hell, got more pushback on her hotel idea than these random imps making an assassination business that requires going to the human world. Shit, the hellhounds are no better either. They're implied to be what's essentially human property, but they're going to parties fucking around with the sin of gluttony. One of them is even fucking dating her. Why are we even trying to make Stolus fucking with an imp feel like it's some sort of crazy thing when someone who's of a higher rank than Stolus is messing around with someone who is of a categorically lower rank than Blitz is? This should seem fucking crazy to these people. Not only that, but people be playing with their lives in this show for absolutely no reason. Luna is confronting one of the 7 deadly sins, the 3rd most powerful demons in the entire Hellverse, with no fear, as if this is just a regular fucking Tuesday. What's the point of giving characters authority if nobody else is going to respect their authority? The reason why people were able to get away with this kind of shit at Homestuck is because the planet they were on before where this was enforced was destroyed a long time ago, and thus the caste system is irrelevant to them. When you look at Hive Swap, where the system is very much still in place, risks like that are actually seen as risks. They are choosing to deal with the consequences of stepping to authority. In the Hell of a Bossverse, it feels like nobody has authority at all, to the point that regular-ass NPCs are willing to talk crazy to the daughter of the King of Hell. I get that Lucifer and Charlie don't abuse their power, this is very well known, but it seems like they don't have even basic respect in Hell at all. So much so that puny little 5th place overlords are willing to actively piss Charlie off to the point she's going into her full demon mode and still not have a lick of care in the world. Like, my nigga, do you know who that is? And let's not even get me started on Alistair, the fucking Adam victim, trying to step up to Lucifer, doing all this antagonizing and rage baiting like this guy cannot wipe you away with the flick of his wrist. Now, obviously, having characters like this can work. Characters who are definitely willing to stand up to those who are deemed, above them in terms of the hierarchy or caste. Their defiance is active, it progresses the story, and it can lead you to think. but it does not work when every single character acts the same way. The entirety of Hell's hierarchy was dropped in a live stream, and thus you could kind of just think of it as some on-the-spot thinking initially, and normally I wouldn't have a problem with that if it wasn't for Vivziepop always trying to say the hierarchy is being enforced without ever showing it being enforced. The absolute worst time that Hell's hierarchy was enforced was in Mastermind, where the entire plot could only move forward off of fucking lies. Most of the trial wasn't even really about them being imps. Hell, most of the 7 deadly sins and a good chunk of the Ars Goetia all had no problems with imps. Hell of a boss is what happens when you try to write a prejudiced society but are afraid of writing bad people. Homestuck has no problems with this. We have elitists, incels, dictators, and a whole heaping load of other horrible pieces of shit to keep this hierarchy intact. Characters like this are not just in place for you to hate them, they're also here to keep consistency. You cannot make an unfair system where everybody who's supposed to benefit from it does not participate. You cannot make a system where Asmodeus should be reasonably benefiting off of imp suffering and then also make it seem like he's a good boy who does no wrong. This would not even be that big of an issue if most of Hell of a Boss's characters were not some form of demon royalty. It's why I've always said that Stolas would have worked much better as a villain for Hell of a Boss than as one of its deuteragonists. You can write in characters that are exceptions to the rule, but when every character is an exception to the rule, it no longer seems to be a rule anymore. But no, the stories insist. They want to keep pushing and pushing the idea that this is a thing by telling you, but every single time they show you, it shows the complete opposite. Because the Hella versus Caste system is inconsistent. Very, very inconsistent. Either way, I feel like that's enough yap on my behalf. I'll be looking forward to when the Homestuck pilot drops, because I need any kind of reason to glaze the class spec system. I never thought one trailer would get me this interested in the series again. I felt like light after picking up the Death Note for a second time. But if you like the video, like it. I finally got my ads back now, so if you'd like, please leave a comment, including video ideas, your thoughts on this video, and thoughts on my other videos. Like, your comments actually mean a lot, even if they're telling me to, kill myself or something. Have a mediocre rest of your day and eat a peach. This fucking helicopter does not leave the house.